Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to say is a key that many people have ignored all their lives. The most powerful person in any room is never the loudest. It is never the one with the title. It is never the one with the money, the influence, or the prestige. The most powerful person in any room is the one who refuses to react. Let me explain why. You see, life is not dangerous because of storms. Life becomes dangerous because of how we respond to storms. A storm is simply wind and water, nothing more, nothing less. But what makes a storm destructive is not the storm itself. It is what the storm pushes around. It is the things that react to the wind that cause the most damage. In the same way, people are not destroyed by circumstances. They are destroyed by their reaction to circumstances. A reaction is evidence of internal disorder. A reaction announces to the world that something inside you is ungoverned, unprotected, and unprepared. Hear me. You were not designed to be controlled by the voices, the moods, or the attitudes of others. You were created to govern, to rule, to have dominion. And the first territory God ever gave you authority over was yourself. Some of you are trying to rule your job, but you cannot rule your emotions. You want authority in relationships, but you react to every word spoken against you. You want to lead others, but you have not yet learned to lead your own spirit. Listen, before God gives you a position, He tests your disposition. Before He trusts you with influence, He trains you in internal government. The Bible teaches that the one who rules the spirit is greater than the one who captures a city. That means if you can't rule you, you can't rule anything else. Now hear this. Reaction is the language of the immature. Response is the language of the wise. Reaction gives power away. Response takes power back. When you react, you hand over your authority. You give your peace to the person who provoked you. You surrender your dignity to the one who offended you. You transfer your clarity to the situation that upset you. And most people live their entire lives in a state of emotional slavery. Not because they are weak, not because they are incapable, but because they have never learned the kingdom discipline of emotional control. Let me tell you this. If people can control your reactions, they can control your life. If situations can dictate your emotions, they can dictate your destiny. If insults can pull you out of character, the enemy can pull you out of purpose. This is why the power of not reacting is one of the greatest kingdom secrets of influence. It is one of the strongest marks of emotional intelligence. And it is one of the clearest indicators that a person is ready for leadership. A calm person is an unnerving person. A controlled person is an unpredictable person. A disciplined person is a dangerous person, because no one knows how to move them. When you reach the place where you can stand in a room where people are losing their minds, attacking you, misunderstanding you, provoking you, and you remain steady, composed, dignified, you have entered a level of mastery that few ever achieve. You become what I call a kingdom thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermometer reflects the environment. A thermostat sets the environment. One reacts, the other regulates. One is controlled, the other commands. And that is what God expects from you. Not to be pushed around emotionally by the winds of life, but to stand firm, rooted, anchored, a leader over your own soul. Let me tell you something important. People follow calmness, not chaos. People follow stability, not volatility. People follow those who can respond with wisdom, not those who react with emotion. Your influence expands when your reactions decrease. That is why this message is so critical. Because until you learn to rule your spirit, until you learn to command your emotions, until you understand the difference between reaction and response, you will continue to forfeit the power God has already given you. Today, I want to show you the 7 kingdom laws that govern emotional control. These laws will not only help you stop reacting, they will restore your peace, increase your influence, and prepare you for a level of leadership you may have been praying for, but not yet ready to manage. So lean in, open your heart, pay attention, because the revelation you are about to receive has the power to shift your life forever. And now, let us step into the first law. Now hear me. because this is the foundation of everything we will discuss today. If you miss this law, every other law will topple like a house built on sand. The first kingdom law of emotional control is the law of internal government. Write that down. Engrave it in your spirit. You must learn to govern yourself. Before God ever gave Adam a family, before he gave him a community, before he gave him a nation, he gave him himself. The first territory God put under man's authority was the territory of his own mind, his own emotions, and his own will. You were never designed to be ruled from the outside. You were designed to be governed from the inside. Most people spend their entire lives trying to manage their job, manage their finances, manage their relationships, manage their image. But they never learn to manage themselves. So they end up living like emotional refugees, running from situation to situation, crisis to crisis, emotion to emotion, never stable, never secure, never governed. Let me say something very important. The greatest form of leadership is self-leadership. And the greatest form of discipline is self-discipline. If you cannot manage yourself, you will mismanage everything entrusted to you. Many people are praying for promotion, but heaven is waiting on their maturity. They are praying for influence, but God is testing their inner government. They are praying to lead others, but they haven't yet graduated from leading themselves. Let me tell you something I learned many years ago. Life does not respond to gifts. Life responds to discipline. You can be anointed and still be disqualified. If you cannot govern your emotions, listen carefully. Your emotions are not evil. They are servants. But when servants become masters, the kingdom collapses. Your mind is the throne. Your will is the governor. Your spirit is the source of authority. And your emotions, your feelings are supposed to take instructions, not give them. But many people have reversed the divine order. Their emotions are on the throne. Their appetites are in charge. Their impulses make the decisions. And their spirit has become a prisoner. And then they wonder why life feels chaotic. Hear me. When your emotions sit on the throne, your life becomes a battlefield. When your spirit sits on the throne, your life becomes a kingdom. This is why the first dimension of power is not the power to speak, not the power to perform miracles, not the power to influence crowds, but the power to rule your own spirit. A person who cannot control their reactions is like a city with broken walls. Anything can enter, anything can exit. Every insult becomes an invader. Every disappointment becomes a thief. Every provocation becomes a weapon. But when you rule your spirit, when your inner world is governed, when your emotions are brought under divine order, then you become unshakable, immovable, untouchable. You become a kingdom within a kingdom. Hear this. People lose positions, relationships, opportunities, and respect. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack internal government. Some of the greatest leaders in history did not fall because of their enemies. They fell because of their emotions. Anger destroyed kings. Jealousy destroyed warriors. Fear destroyed nations. Pride destroyed empires. You cannot conquer the world if you have not conquered your reactions. You cannot manage the responsibilities of destiny if you cannot manage the impulses of the moment. Now, let me bring this home. Internal government means three things. One, you must be able to tell yourself no. Self-control begins with denial. If you cannot deny yourself, your emotions will dominate your choices. Two, you must be able to instruct your emotions, not obey them. Your emotions must be trained, not trusted. You teach your emotions how to behave by aligning them with truth, not mood. Three, you must build an inner structure stronger than outer pressure. Life will press you. People will test you. Circumstances will challenge you. But if the inside is stronger than the outside, you will stand when others collapse. Let me tell you why some people react quickly. They have no internal government. They live as emotional democracies. Anything can vote. Everything has a say. But the kingdom of God is not a democracy. It is a government. And the government begins in you. Your emotions were never meant to be the leaders of your life. They were meant to be indicators, not dictators. Signals, not sovereigns. If you can master the territory within you, you will master any territory outside you. Because nothing outside can control a person whose inside is fully governed. So the first law, the foundation of all emotional power, is this: rule your spirit, or your reactions will rule your life. Now, listen to me carefully. If the first law of emotional control is internal government, then the second law is the behavior that proves you are governed. This is called the law of pause and perception. Write that down. Because this single law has saved more destinies than talent ever has. Power, real power, does not live in reaction. Power lives in the pause. The pause is the gap between what happened to you and how you choose to respond to it. That little space, that small, sacred moment of stillness, is where wisdom lives. It is where dignity lives. It is where maturity lives. It is where destiny is protected. Most people lose their greatest opportunities, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack anointing, but because they lack a pause. A pause is a kingdom technology. It is a divine tool that separates the immature from the wise. People who react quickly reveal their lack of leadership. People who pause reveal their mastery. Let me tell you something profound. You cannot be manipulated if you know how to pause. You cannot be provoked if you know how to pause. You cannot be emotionally hijacked if you know how to pause. The enemy has no strategy against a person who refuses to react on impulse. Think of Jesus. They questioned him. They accused him. They attacked him. They tried to trap him. And what did he do? He paused. He stooped down. He wrote in the sand. He waited. He controlled the atmosphere through his stillness. The pause was his weapon. When you pause, you shift the power. When you pause, you regain control. When you pause, you give your spirit time to speak above your emotions. A pause is not a delay. A pause is a decision. A decision that says, I choose wisdom over impulse. I choose truth over instinct. I choose destiny over reaction. Hear this. Reactions are born in the flesh. Responses are born in the spirit. A reaction is immediate. A response is intentional. When you pause, you create space for your mind to align with truth, for your emotions to settle, and for your spirit to take the lead. Let me break this down for you. A pause does 4 things. 1, the pause interrupts emotional momentum. Your emotions move quickly like a river after heavy rain. If you do not interrupt them, they will sweep you into decisions you will regret. The pause is your spiritual dam. It stops the flood before it destroys your future. 2, the pause restores your perception. When emotions rise, perception drops. You stop seeing accurately. You stop thinking clearly. You stop hearing truthfully. The pause clears the fog. It lets you see what is actually happening instead of what your emotions think is happening. Oftentimes, it is not the situation that is the problem. It is the perception that was polluted by reaction. 3, the pause allows truth to overrule instinct. The moment you pause, your mind shifts from survival mode to wisdom mode. Truth becomes louder than fear. Purpose becomes louder than anger. Destiny becomes louder than ego. The flesh wants to speak now. The spirit wants to speak right. The pause gives the spirit a chance to lead. 4, the pause disarms your opponent. People expect you to react. Your silence frustrates their prediction. Your pause confuses their attack. Your composure dissolves their control. A calm person is intimidating. A slow-to-speak person is unpredictable. A poised person is unmanipulable. The pause makes you a mystery, and mystery is a form of power. Let me give you a simple technique. Practice this every day. Stop, breathe, evaluate, respond. Just 4 steps, just 4 seconds. But those 4 seconds can save you from broken relationships, emotional damage, unnecessary arguments, foolish decisions, spiritual setbacks, destroyed opportunities, lifelong regret. Some of you need nothing more than a 4-second pause to deliver you from a lifetime of consequences. Hear me. Never let your emotions speak before your spirit approves the message. Never let your anger sign a contract your future cannot afford. Never let your frustration decide what your wisdom should govern. The pause is not weakness. The pause is sovereignty. When a king pauses before speaking, he is not confused. He is calculating. When a leader pauses before responding, he is not intimidated. He is assessing. When a mature man or woman pauses, they are protecting their power, preserving their purpose, and preparing the correct response. Stop letting urgency lie to you. Very few things in life require an immediate reaction, but almost everything in life requires an intentional response. So I say to you today, pause, think, discern, then speak. This is how the wise live. This is how the mature lead. This is how kingdom people protect their influence. And this is how emotional control begins to manifest outwardly. You become powerful, not through noise, not through reaction, but through divine restraint. Because power, real power, hides in the pause. Now, hear me very carefully, because this law is one of the most important in the entire kingdom. If you grasp this one, it will change your relationships, your confidence, your decisions, and your emotional world will rise to another level entirely. The law of identity, consciousness. What does that mean? It means this. Your identity determines your reactions. Your reactions reveal your identity. Every emotional outburst, every argument you engage in, every insult that provokes you, every comment that pulls you out of character, all of it exposes what you believe about yourself. You can only be offended by something you secretly fear might be true. You can only be destabilized by someone whose opinion affects your worth. You can only be provoked when your identity is dependent on perception. Hear this. A person who does not know who they are will always be a slave to how others see them. If your identity is not secure, your emotions will not be secure. If your identity is fragile, your reactions will be fragile. If your identity is undefined, your life will be easily manipulated. This is why the greatest attack on your life is not against your money, not against your relationships, not against your success. The greatest attack is against your identity. Because if the enemy can cause you to doubt who you are, he can control how you react. If he can control how you react, he can control the direction of your destiny. Your identity is the seat of your emotional authority. If that seat is weak, everything collapses. Let me tell you a secret of the kingdom. When you know who you are, you become unoffendable. Not insensitive, unoffendable. Because you're not reacting from insecurity, you're responding from identity. This is why Jesus never reacted emotionally to insults. They called him illegitimate. He didn't react. They called him a blasphemer. He didn't react. They called him demon-possessed. He didn't react. They lied, accused, attacked, misunderstood. He never lowered himself to meet their immaturity. Why? Because he knew exactly who he was, where he came from, and why he was here. Identity, consciousness, protects emotional composure. Let me ask you a question. Who are you? And I don't mean your name. I don't mean your career. I don't mean your achievements. I'm asking you the same question God asked Adam. Where are you? Not geographically, but internally. Who are you beneath the titles? Who are you beneath the roles you play? Who are you beneath the opinions people have created about you? Because until you know that, people will always have the power to tell you who you are. And you will react emotionally to every mislabeling. Identity consciousness is threefold. Let me teach it to you the kingdom way. 1. Identity consciousness begins with origin. You must know where you came from. If you believe you came from people, people will define you. If you believe you came from culture, culture will shape you. If you believe you came from mistakes, your past will imprison you. But when you discover you came from God himself, that you were birthed from eternity, that you carry his nature, his image, his likeness, then insults no longer injure you. They simply irritate you. 2. Identity consciousness requires purpose. You must know why you exist. Purpose is the stabilizer of emotions. People who don't know their assignment react to everything, get offended by everything, are threatened by everything. But when you know your purpose, you don't have time for emotional distractions. You don't have energy for emotional battles. You don't have space for emotional traps. Purpose eliminates unnecessary reactions. Purpose decides what matters. Purpose dictates your emotional investments. 3. Identity consciousness demands self-worth. If you do not value yourself, you will always seek validation from others. And whoever validates you today can destroy you tomorrow. Your worth is not determined by applause or rejection. Your worth is established by creation. God decided your value before humans discovered your existence. When you understand that, rejection stops feeling like an attack. Insults stop feeling like threats. Criticism stops feeling like injury. Hear me. The opinion of the unqualified cannot define the value of the God design. Let me give you an example. When a lion hears a dog barking, the lion does not react. The lion does not argue. The lion does not feel insulted. The lion does not feel insecure. Why? Because the barking of a dog cannot reduce the identity of a lion. If you keep reacting to barking dogs, it means you have forgotten you are a lion. Your emotional reactions reveal whether you are living like royalty or reacting like insecurity. When you truly know who you are, something shifts inside of you. You stop defending yourself. You stop explaining yourself. You stop proving yourself. You stop lowering yourself. You stop reacting to people beneath your assignment. Identity creates dignity. Dignity creates restraint. Restraint creates emotional mastery. Hear me. Who you believe you are determines what you refuse to react to. You can always tell a person's identity by the level of drama that pulls their attention. When you know who you are, you become selective. You become discerning. You become stable. You become unmoved by the opinions of immature people. Reactions shrink when identity grows. Peace increases when identity solidifies. Purpose becomes clear when identity is established. So here is your assignment. Stop reacting from your insecurity. Start responding from your identity. Because the day you discover who you truly are is the day you stop giving emotional power to people who never deserved it. Now listen to me very carefully, because this law touches the very root of emotional control. If the first law governs the heart, and the second law governs your reactions, and the third law governs your identity, then this law governs the very source from which emotions are born. This is the law of thought management. And it simply means this: your emotions are the children of your thoughts. Your emotions do not appear out of nowhere. They are birthed by what you consistently meditate on. You cannot feel what you do not think. You cannot fear without imagining danger. You cannot be jealous without imagining loss. You cannot be offended without imagining disrespect. You cannot feel inferior without imagining comparison. Your emotions follow your meditation. Your emotions are servants to your thoughts. Whatever is allowed to grow in your mind will eventually grow in your emotions. Hear me. Your mind is the womb of your emotional life. If you don't like how you feel, you must change what you think. If you want to control your emotions, you must manage your thoughts. Some people are fighting emotional battles that were created by mental habits they refuse to confront. Most emotional pain didn't start as an emotion. It started as a thought that was allowed to stay too long. A thought becomes a meditation. A meditation becomes an imagination. An imagination becomes a belief. A belief becomes a reaction. And a reaction becomes a cycle. This is why Dr. Myles Munroe taught that thoughts create beliefs, beliefs create attitudes, attitudes create behavior, and behavior creates destiny. Your entire life is following your thoughts. Let me break it down for you. You are not what you think you are, but what you think you become. This is why the enemy does not attack your emotions first. He doesn't go after your feelings. He goes after your thoughts. Because if he can plant a thought, he can harvest an emotion. If he can harvest an emotion, he can influence the decision. And if he can influence a decision, he can shape a destiny. You must guard your mind as if your future depends on it, because it does. Let me show you 3 levels of thought management that every kingdom citizen must master. 1, you must control the thoughts that enter. Your mind has gates, the eye gate and the ear gate. Whatever enters those gates eventually enters your emotional life. This is why you must be selective with what you watch, what you listen to, what you entertain, what conversations you tolerate. Many people are emotionally unstable because their minds have no filters. Everything enters. Nothing is screened. Nothing is evaluated. But hear this. You cannot allow everything into your mind and expect emotional peace to remain. What you feed your mind is what your emotions will speak. 2, you must challenge the thoughts that stay. Thoughts may enter, but they don't have to remain. You cannot stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a nest. You cannot stop a negative thought from visiting, but you can stop it from settling, growing roots and shaping your beliefs. Some of you let thoughts stay too long. The thought said, you're not good enough, and you let it stay. The thought said, you'll never succeed, and you let it stay. The thought said, no one cares, and you let it stay. The thought said, you always fail, and you let it stay. You didn't challenge it. You didn't confront it. You didn't question it. Hear me. If you don't question your thoughts will question your purpose. Everything you meditate on becomes louder. Everything you refuse to challenge becomes stronger. You must ask, is this thought true? Is this thought helpful? Is this thought aligned with my destiny? If not, you must evict it immediately. 3, you must replace the thoughts. You remove. The mind cannot remain empty. If you remove a thought but do not replace it, it will return with reinforcements. This is why the renewal of the mind is not passive. It is intentional, active, deliberate. You replace lies with truth. You replace fear with peace. You replace insecurity with identity. You replace confusion with clarity. You replace doubt with purpose. Emotional control is not simply suppressing reactions. It is restructuring your thinking. Your mind is not a battlefield for demons. Your mind is a garden for destiny. If you don't plant the right seeds, the wrong seeds will grow automatically. Negative thoughts are weeds. They grow without permission. Positive thoughts must be planted and watered with intention. Your emotional climate is determined by your mental plantation. Hear this. A man who controls his thoughts controls his emotions. And a man who controls his emotions controls his world. If you manage your thoughts well, your emotions will obey you like trained soldiers. If you neglect your thoughts, your emotions will rise like rebels and overthrow your peace. Thought management is not optional. It is essential, because your emotions are simply the echo of whatever thoughts you have allowed to rule your mind. So the 4th law of emotional control is clear. Guard your mind, and your emotions will follow your leadership. Now listen to me closely, because if there is any law people underestimate, any law they ignore, any law they violate without even knowing, it is this one, the law of environmental mastery. This law declares that your environment is not simply a background to your emotions. It is the architect of your emotional atmosphere. Your environment shapes what grows in your mind. Your environment feeds what lives in your heart. Your environment determines what dominates your emotions. Hear me. You are not just a product of your decisions. You are also a product of your environment. If your environment is chaotic, your emotions will be chaotic. If your environment is toxic, your emotions will become toxic. If your environment is filled with fear, your emotions will mirror fear. If your environment is full of gossip, your emotions will become polluted. No plant, no matter how healthy, can thrive in contaminated soil. And no mind, no matter how gifted, can thrive in a contaminated environment. Your environment is either nurturing your strength or watering your weakness. Your environment is either lifting you or lowering you, sharpening you or dulling you, feeding your purpose or feeding your confusion. Your emotions are simply responding to the climate you live in. Let me teach you 3 environments that determine the quality of your emotional life. 1, your physical environment. The rooms you sit in shape the thoughts you think. Your surroundings send signals to your mind that become feelings in your body. If your home is cluttered, your mind will feel cluttered. If your workspace is chaotic, your emotions will become chaotic. If your room is filled with noise, your inner world will reflect that noise. Order breeds peace. Chaos breeds anxiety. Cleanliness breeds clarity. Disorder breeds confusion. Some of you are emotionally overwhelmed, not because something is wrong with your heart, but because something is wrong with your space. Your room has become a storage unit for old pain. Your house has become a museum for past seasons. Your environment has not been refreshed, so your emotions haven't been refreshed. When God wanted to change Adam, he first put him in a new environment, Eden. Environment precedes assignment. 2, your social environment. This is the environment that destroys more destinies than failure ever will. Hear me. Your friendships are emotional fertilizers. Some fertilize fear. Some fertilize doubt. Some fertilize insecurity. Some fertilize offense. Some fertilize anger. And some, only a rare few, fertilize purpose, peace, wisdom, and clarity. If you sit with complainers, you will feel heavy. If you sit with gossips, your emotions will be polluted. If you sit with people who constantly argue, your spirit will be unsettled. But if you sit with people who speak life, your emotions will rise to life. If you sit with people of vision, your emotions will rise with vision. If you sit with people of faith, your emotions will grow in faith. Emotions are transferable. Atmospheres are contagious. Spirits are influential. You must choose your circle as carefully as you choose your future. If you protect your purpose but expose yourself to toxic people, you have already sabotaged your destiny. Let me tell you something profound. Some emotional battles will disappear overnight if you simply change your environment. There are people who drain you because their presence disrupts your emotional equilibrium. Your spirit knows they are not assigned to your destiny, but your habits keep them near. You cannot heal in the same environment that injured you. You cannot rise in the same environment where others refuse to grow. You cannot become emotionally powerful while surrounded by people who live emotionally irresponsible lives. Separation is not always rejection. Sometimes separation is protection. 3, your mental environment. This is the environment inside your head, the internal atmosphere you allow your mind to inhabit. Some people live in a mental environment of regret. Some live in a mental environment of fear. Some live in a mental environment of comparison. Some live in a mental environment of overthinking. Your mind becomes the emotional weather system of your life. If your mental environment is stormy, your emotions will storm. If your mental environment is dark, your emotions will darken. If your mental environment is peaceful, your emotions will follow. You create this environment through the content you consume, the conversations you allow, the thoughts you rehearse, the memories you revisit, the worries you feed. And let me tell you something. Kingdom people often forget peace is not found. Peace is created. Peace is the result of managing the environment you tolerate. Some of you have never given yourself permission to protect your peace with boundaries. You treat peace as a luxury when it is actually a responsibility. Hear this. Your emotional climate rises or falls to the level of the environment you accept. You cannot expect peace while entertaining chaos. You cannot expect clarity while tolerating confusion. You cannot expect emotional strength while surrounding yourself with emotional dysfunction. Your environment is preaching to your emotions every day. The question is, what sermon is it preaching? You must take authority over your space, over your circle, over your atmosphere. Because when you master your environment, your emotions will finally breathe. Your mind will finally rest. Your heart will finally focus. Control the environment. And the environment will stop controlling you. Now hear me very, very carefully. Because this law right here separates the wise from the foolish, the mature from the unstable, the powerful from the reactive. This is the law of emotional delay. And this law teaches us something simple, yet profoundly transformative. Every emotion comes with a timer. And the longer you wait, the more your wisdom rises and your emotion settles. You were not created to react instantly. You were created to respond intelligently. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Reaction is instinct. Response is wisdom. Reaction is survival. Response is leadership. If you react instantly, your emotions are in charge. If you delay your reaction, your mind takes the throne again. That is why the most dangerous people in the world are not the loud, impulsive, easily provoked. The most dangerous people are the quiet, composed, unshakable ones who have mastered the delay. Emotional delay is the difference between destroying your future and directing your future. Let me show you this kingdom principle clearly. Emotions are loud at first, but accurate later. The moment something happens, your emotions speak first. They shout, they shake you, they demand action. But if you wait, if you pause, if you breathe, if you delay, your emotions decrease and your clarity increases. Hear me. Your first emotion is rarely your true emotion. And your first reaction is rarely the right reaction. This is why James says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, slow, slow, slow. The kingdom is telling you, delay your emotions, delay your reactions, delay your responses. Because the longer you wait, the more your spirit takes the wheel, and your fear, anger, and insecurity move into the back seat. Let me teach you 3 forms of emotional delay that produce emotional mastery. 1, delay your speech. This is the most powerful delay in all of human relationships. Many broken marriages, many destroyed friendships, many lost opportunities, many severed partnerships did not happen because people were evil. They happened because people spoke too quickly. Words spoken in emotion become wounds when the emotion is gone. A moment of anger can create a lifetime of regret. A single sentence can become a permanent bruise. If you delay your speech, your emotions don't get to speak for you. Your wisdom does. The wisest people in the Bible were not the fastest talkers. They were the slowest. A wise man delays. A fool reacts. Remember this. When you speak too quickly, your emotions borrow your mouth without your permission. 2, delay your decisions. Never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. Never quit when you're tired. Never confront when you're angry. Never promise when you're excited. Never judge when you're offended. Never respond when you're wounded. Emotions are temporary storms, but decisions are permanent structures. Storms pass. Structures remain long after. If you delay your decision, you allow the storm to pass so you can see the landscape clearly again. This is why Jesus withdrew often. He delayed. He paused. He waited. He separated. A delayed decision is often a divinely guided decision. 3, delay your interpretation. This one is powerful. Most emotional suffering is not caused by the event, but by our interpretation of the event. When something happens, you instantly interpret it emotionally. They ignored me. They're against me. I'm not valued. This is unfair. They meant to hurt me. But if you wait, if you step back, if you delay, suddenly your mind recalibrates. Your fears settle. Your assumptions weaken. Your clarity increases. What looked like an insult may simply be someone else's exhaustion. What looked like rejection may be someone else's distraction. What looked like hostility may be someone else's insecurity. What looked like disrespect may be someone else's confusion. Delay your interpretation and your peace will multiply. Delay your interpretation and your relationships will heal. Delay your interpretation and your emotional world will stabilize. Now hear this kingdom truth clearly. When you delay your emotions, you regain your leadership. Emotional delay is not suppression, it is regulation. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is not passivity, but it is power. Emotional delay says, I will not let temporary feelings destroy permanent blessings. I will not let anger rewrite my destiny. I will not give emotion the authority God gave my spirit. Delayed emotions create better decisions, the stronger relationships, clearer thinking, deeper wisdom, and emotional dominance. When you master emotional delay, you become unmanipulable. People can no longer pull you into their urgency, their insecurity, their drama. You rise above. You see further. You think deeper. And you step into the emotional authority that God designed for those who refuse to be ruled by impulse. Now listen to me very, very carefully. Because this law is the foundation of your emotional world. It is the fountain from which your confidence, your peace, your clarity, and your identity flow. This is the law of inner dialogue. And this law declares something that many people never realize. The loudest voice in your life is not the voice around you, but it is the voice within you. You may hear people speak. You may hear critics. You may hear opinions. You may hear insults. You may hear applause. You may hear encouragement. But none of those voices shape your destiny as much as the voice in your own mind. That inner voice interprets your experiences. That inner voice translates your environment. That inner voice defines your identity. That inner voice decides your emotional climate. And hear me, you are not destroyed by what people say about you. You are destroyed by what you say about you after they've spoken. You are not limited by what happened to you. You are limited by what you tell yourself about what happened. You are not defeated by the event. You are defeated by the narrative you create around the event. Your inner dialogue is the sculptor of your emotional life. Let me tell you something critical. Your emotions obey your inner voice. If your inner voice is fearful, your emotions will be anxious. If your inner voice is insecure, your emotions will be fragile. If your inner voice is negative, your emotions will be heavy. If your inner voice is confused, your emotions will be chaotic. But if your inner voice is strong, your emotions will be stable. If your inner voice is wise, your emotions will be calm. If your inner voice is kingdom-minded, your emotions will be unshakable. This is why Scripture does not simply say, be renewed. It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation is not an emotional event. It is a mental event that produces emotional alignment. You cannot pray for emotional peace and speak to yourself in emotional chaos. You cannot ask God for confidence and tell yourself you're not good enough. You cannot ask for clarity and rehearse confusion in your mind. Your inner dialogue must match your destiny. Let me teach you 3 truths that govern the law of inner dialogue. 1. Your inner voice is the echo of your beliefs. Your inner dialogue reveals what you truly believe about yourself. You can say you're strong, But if your inner voice whispers weakness, you will feel weak. You can say you're blessed, but if your inner voice speaks lack, you will feel deprived. You can say you're chosen, but if your inner voice speaks unworthiness, you will feel rejected. Your emotions follow the belief that your inner voice repeats. This is why God always deals with identity before destiny. Because if your inner voice is wrong, your emotional life will sabotage your purpose. 2, your inner voice is shaped by your meditation. Whatever you meditate on becomes your inner narrator. If you meditate on fear, fear will speak. If you meditate on past pain, pain will speak. If you meditate on failure, failure will speak. Your inner voice is simply the playlist your meditation has been rehearsing. You must change the playlist. To change the voice, you must change the meditation. To change the mood, you must change the narrative. To change the nature of your emotions. This is why David said, I meditate on your law day and night. Because meditation constructs inner dialogue. Inner dialogue constructs emotional stability. 3, your inner voice can be trained. Many believers do not understand this. Your inner voice is not a fixed reality. It is a trained voice. If you train your inner voice in negativity, you can retrain it in truth. If you trained it in fear, you can retrain it in faith. If you trained it in doubt, you can retrain it in confidence. Your emotions will obey whichever voice you train. This is why affirmations work. This is why confessions are powerful. This is why speaking the word over yourself changes your emotional DNA. Your inner world rewires when your inner voice realigns. Hear me. The voice you repeat is the voice you believe. The voice you believe is the voice you follow. The voice you follow is the voice you become. Your inner dialogue is deciding the person you are becoming. So ask yourself, what has my inner voice been telling me? What script have I been repeating? What lies have I accepted as truth? What fears have I allowed to narrate my confidence? What past events have I allowed to reinterpret my worth? You must take authority over that voice. You must silence the voice that contradicts your future. You must shut down the voice that undermines your identity. You must reject the voice that weakens your purpose. Here is the kingdom truth. You cannot live a powerful life with a powerless inner voice. You cannot be emotionally strong while speaking emotional weakness to yourself. You cannot be stable while your inner voice rehearses instability. You cannot walk in purpose while your inner voice whispers limitation. So today, make a decision. I will no longer let my inner voice be an echo of my fears. I will no longer let my inner voice repeat the voices of my past. I will no longer let my inner voice speak in the language of insecurity. From today, your inner voice must become kingdom aligned, speaking truth, speaking purpose, speaking identity, speaking confidence, speaking destiny, speaking clarity, speaking the voice of God, speaking the voice of your future and not the voice of your wounds. Because the most powerful person in any room is not the one who controls others, but the one who has finally mastered the voice within.